Well, part two here, Mike, we had a conversation last time about the first two milestones. So we're looking up to essentially the 50K MRR, 50K monthly revenue for agencies. Today, we're going to dive into 50K to 100K. What's the milestone to get there? And then really dive into just the overall 100K a month revenue milestone for agencies and all of the things that they have to achieve to really be able to sustain that. Make sure it's not just a really good month or a really good 2 months and then kind of
Right.
back down, right? So
Yeah.
50K to 100K, that milestone, like what does that really look like to you as agencies are trying to get there?
Yeah, I think the kind of keyword or the theme for that level of revenue is optimization.
Mm.
So the first level, 525K is the foundations. You have to figure out the foundations, the product market fit, how things work. It's mostly you. There's no team. So, you know, that kind of is where, what do you need to focus on? And then you go through growth stage, which is the 25-50K, at which point you're like starting to get some repeatable success, right? And then there's a optimization, because as you go through the growth, there's a lot of like duct tapings, happening as well, a little bit of like ad hoc stuff. And then the 50-100K is where you should already start to see like, some repetitive tasks. So maybe you can optimize and things like that. So that is where you optimize. And this is also where you scale things up, where you scale your ads, when you expand to different channels, when you optimize your products and your delivery more, right? So in the foundations and the growth, there's a lot of testing and a lot of focus as well. So it's kind of sounds counterintuitive, or in a way that like on one hand I'm saying you have to test, on the other hand I'm saying to focus. But like you have to really find the product market fit. You have to find the right audience, right? So I'll give you an example. When I was starting my second agency in Canada, I was like, well, yeah, I don't know I didn't know the market. So I wanted to go after, I was like, well, maybe I go after real estate agents, or maybe I go after lawyers, right? So I wanted to focus, but I needed to know whether I want to work with that in the industry or space or niche in the first place, right? So there was a lot of testing on my end, and then I knew I don't want to work with real estate agents, for example. I was like, oh, this is a terrible market. I don't want to work with them. Don't get me wrong. My friends are killing it in that market, but I couldn't work it out. I just didn't like working with real estate agents. Nothing against them. I just couldn't have them as clients. And so there's a lot of figuring out, right? But you have to kind of focus on one thing. You have to focus on the niche in the end. And you have to focus on one channel. You have to kind of nail it down to get that traction. As you get traction, when you go to that stage of like 50-100K, in order for you to grow more and scale more, this is the time where you expand. So you add more channels. So let's say your main channel to get leads is LinkedIn. And if you have optimized LinkedIn, that's fantastic. But if you see a little bit of a slower pace of getting leads from LinkedIn, then this is where you can maybe expand to YouTube or something else, right? Same with ads. You have ads optimized, and then now is the time to scale them. One important piece for this one, for the optimization for the 50-100K, is that when you start in the foundations, it's mostly you. It's mostly manual, organic work. And then as you go through the growth, you start building the team, right? So we'll have a link in the show notes to the actual visual, so people can kind of follow what I'm saying. But as you kind of go to the next level, you go from organic to paid, meaning you get less organic leads and more focus on the paid. And then you go less from you being the one who's doing all the work, more towards the team. And what that means is that in the foundations, you maybe have a VA, maybe you have a contractor you can tap into. In the growth stage, you have a team. You start building the team. In the optimization page, you upgrade the team. It's not necessarily you make it bigger. You just have to upgrade it, and that is a big difference. Because, and I think you went through that yourself as well. It's not that you needed more media buyers or more people to do operations. You just needed different people. Mm-hmm. You just needed different caliber. You just needed people who have more strategy, more depth, more experience. So it's kind of like you replace one for one. but it's just a different level of a player, right? And I think that's important because a lot of the times that I see that agencies will just hire more people and they will not be able to kind of pull the weight of the clients that you have or the number of clients that you have or the types of projects that you're working with at that stage.
Yeah, I saw a LinkedIn post recently that had a good point. Sometimes you can see it as you could hire two, let's say, creative strategists for 60,000 a year or 50,000 a year, let's say. Those two 50,000 a year creative strategists might not be as productive as $100,000 a year creative strategist, just because that creative strategist may have more tactical ability. They may have more. So it's not necessarily the quantity of work that's getting put out is increasing. It's the quality of work that's getting put out is increasing, which attracts better clients because you need great talent to attract great clients, but also at the same time, you need great clients to be able to attract great talent, right? So
Right.
that, and I think this 50 to 100K stage, as you say, it's optimizing. That's really important too, to make sure that you're not moving into a churn and burn agency type model, right? So having your head, as you're hiring, taking the time to slow down, to speed up and look at operations and do time tracking by client, by team member, so you can understand what services, what type of client, what industry, what vertical has the best margins for you. Also, as you're talking about expanding channels, what channels have the best close rate, what channels have the best attraction of new leads, like taking those things into account so that you can build strategically and not just get into like a cyclical pattern of client churn, team member churn, et cetera.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that you should be building as in like dashboard and analytics in that growth mode already to understand like what's working, what's not. Because, if we're talking about, let's say, media buying agency, those agencies on the delivery side, they're very data driven, right? You have to look at what's working on Google Ads, Facebook Ads, look at CTRs, conversion rates, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, what I'm seeing, like the founders of those same agencies, they don't look at the metrics inside of their business and they don't know, like, I'm like, I come in there and like, what's your profit margin? They're like, we don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? You're making 50K per month. You don't know what your profit margin is per client or per project or per business line. And those are the things like you cannot really control things that you don't have awareness about, right? So how do you know what type of niches or what types of clients you should work with if you don't have that data, right? One other important thing about retention and churn is that it costs 5 to 25 times more to land a new client than it is to expand an LTV of an existing one. Which is mind-blowing if you think about it. Obviously, this is statistically, that's the number, but it's mind-blowing. Like most agencies, most founders will go and chase new leads. They will focus on the sales piece, oftentimes, forgetting about the delivery to an existing client and forgetting about just making the experience of those clients as good as possible and maybe expanding your footprint with them. It's like, why, like you worked your ass off to get this client and onboard them and to work through your onboarding process, which is usually not profitable on your end, and all these things, and you finally get into a good relationship with them, and yet you let them slip into and go and leave to another agency, for example. Like that makes zero sense. So what I'm suggesting is that obviously as you hit certain number of clients, that really slow down on getting more clients and optimizing the delivery on your end, but also the experience that the clients have. So maybe that means better communication, different reporting, adding a little bit to the scope if that's making sense. Stuff like that to keep that client as long as possible, because otherwise, like you get a new client, you lose a new client, like a client that makes zero sense. It won't, your business won't grow, obviously. And I think a lot of founders just forget about that piece, about taking care of the existing client.
Yeah, and it can be, there can be multiple reasons for it, but I think a good thing to think about is make the client's life easier and make the services that you offer known. You don't have to necessarily push it down their throat, and you don't have to feel like you're trying to like upsell or cross-sell them every time you talk to them. But if they're looking for additional support, it's a lot easier for them to get it from someone they already work with than to try to find an entire new agency to buy into, believe in, and work with, right?
Yeah.
And so it just helps build out the relationship going forward as well.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? It's they already trust you, right? So why not kind of leverage that trust? And I was working with a client earlier this year, and she was having issues with like growing her business, and she had two legs of the business. One was the agency, the other one was a program, right, that teaches how to achieve a certain goal, which is a very common setup, right? So basically, those who are not a good fit to work with your agency, you offer a program where you teach how to achieve the same goal. So if someone is coming to you to do Facebook ads and they cannot afford you to do Facebook ads for them, you teach them how to do it, which is a great way to scale, a great way to basically capitalize on the leads that are coming in that are not a good fit. Now, the problem that she had was there was a lot of churn. And then what I did is that I analyzed the feedback after people have left her program, like what were the reasons why they were leaving. And they very often they would say, "Oh, we're leaving to another agency, to an agency that offers X, Y, Z." And I'm like, "Well, hold on a second. What, aren't you offering the same thing?" She's like, "Yeah, I am." Well, so clearly these people were not aware of the fact that you do. So to your point, Colby, it's not that you have to upsell them and sell them on every occasion. It's more so letting your client know how they can leverage you, and what is the potential scope increase as well. And for your delivery team, or however you have this set up, it's looking for those signals from a client that they might need some help in a certain space as well, right? So let's say you deliver Facebook ads, and then they keep talking about creative strategy, or you keep asking them about creative, and like, "Oh yeah, we'll do this internally." Like, this is a moment when you say, "Hey guys, well, we actually have a creative studio. Would that be helpful?" Right? This is a very soft pitch. Another situation might be where you spot opportunities to expand and to add another leg of the business. So let's say they keep saying, "Well, we need to supplement our Meta ads with Google ads." Well, then maybe it makes sense for you to expand to Google ads as well, right? So it's spotting those opportunities, and so you have to have your work or delivery set up in a way that there is someone who can actually pay attention to those signals, and that's why it's good to have like frequent calls with a client to get a feel for like where they are, what they're thinking, what is their kind of approach, what is their strategy, what is the situation in their business.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on that. The first is what you just said, very important. Not necessarily training your team to be sales, but training your team to have their head on a swivel to look for opportunities like that, and at least call it out after they get off a client call, to understand that there may be additional support or opportunity needs that way. Two things that I wish I would have done a lot sooner in the agency. And I think I took too long to switch from like the freelancing, like day-to-day reactive type mindset to like looking more long-term with things and value compounding growth. One is I wish I would have focused not necessarily just on trying to cross-sell clients, but just asking happy clients for referrals, and just asking clients if they knew anybody that was looking for stuff. The worst that they can say is no, right? If they're happy. The second thing is compounding growth activities. I wish I would have started SEO a lot sooner. We started taking that very seriously Q1 of last year, Q4 of 2023, but really Q1 of last year. I had 5 sales calls on Monday of this week, right? It took time. It didn't turn things around in 3 months or 6 months, but over time, working with a consultant, just prioritizing building out our SEO has been a huge driver for us to be able to get, I don't want to say passive leads coming in, but not having to pay ad dollars and get things coming in pipeline. So I wish I would have really focused on those compounding activities a lot sooner in the agency.
Yeah, well, it's easy to look at things and connect the dots looking backwards, right? I mean, SEO is powerful, it takes time, and we just have a tendency to look at things like, I want this right now. And obviously, if you need leads and clients right now, you cannot rely on SEO, because that's going to take 6, 12, 18 months. It took 12 months, I guess, for you to kind of kick in properly, right? Where that becomes sort of like a really, a channel for you, right? With getting you leads. While obviously, if you need leads right now, you have to take a different approach. But having said that, you cannot sleep on SEO, because again, that delay will happen there anyway, right? So that's a very fair point. And moving from changing your mindset from being a freelancer to the agency owner, stepping out of, doing the work and thinking about, how can I grow my business long term? That's one of the mindsets shifts that a lot of people have to have, because otherwise you're just going to get stuck. And that, being stuck is kind of one of the signals of you being stuck, is where you are scared to delegate to your team members. When you're like, well, I'm the best who's doing this, I can, I'm the only one. But if you're the only one, you are the bottleneck in your business, and you have to remove yourself as the bottleneck as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's almost like if there's services that you offer that only you can do, you probably shouldn't offer those services unless it's something that's like really needed at the time because you're low margin. But building out services with intentionality to be able to scale your agency versus being stuck in like consulting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly right. You have to build it in a way that is scalable and profitable from the get-go by design, right? So it's not like, oh, I know I'm the only one who knows how to do it. I'm the unicorn. Like if you were the unicorn, you would have to find another unicorn to scale yourself, right, and scale your business so that you can handle more clients. But it's so hard to find a unicorn, and it's just, I would just recommend against it, because if you like, why is it so hard to find a unicorn? Well, basically, first of all, they probably are already running their own show. They're running their own business. Like, why would they work for someone else? And if they don't want to work for themselves, they are very expensive and hard to replace. So if you lose a unicorn, then you lose, let's say there's you and the other person, and you guys handle 20 clients. You lose that one person, and you're screwed. So it's better to build in kind of chunks, in a sense of like just kind of fragmenting the tasks into smaller pieces that can be delivered by entry level, if you will, people, and then that's something that's very replicable in a sense, instead of having someone like one person who's just dedicated for the whole thing, because again, that person leaves, it's hard to replace, hard to find, it's expensive, it's hard to train someone new. Whereas if you have something that is more copy paste approach, and it's a smaller task, it's easier to find someone cheaper, easier to train, easier to hire, easier to onboard as well. So thinking about scalability from the get-go is important for those who want to scale, obviously, because there's a lot of people who are super happy doing 20K per month and having 5 clients themselves, and that's a different story.
Well, let's move into for the last few minutes of our recording here. Let's look at that 100K milestone for agencies. What are one or two of the most important things that agencies should be doing or should have their eyesight on to make sure that they can sustainably keep at that 100K or more retainer?
Well, I think the biggest reason for the fluctuation, and 1 month 50K, the other one 60K, I guess there's 2 reasons for that. One is the churn that we already discussed, and the other one is a feast and famine approach, where you prospect, you hustle, you prospect, you get a lot of leads, and then once you get leads, then all of a sudden you have to onboard them and deliver, and you stop prospecting. So you go up and down all the time, right? So you don't, and how to fix that? Well, you have to have, again, a process or a way to constantly be prospecting and constantly being delivering at the same time. So you have to have those 2 things in on your mind. So you cannot be in a position where, let's say, you're doing the sales and you're doing the delivery, because when you sell, you have to onboard and deliver. And at 100K, I wouldn't assume that you are doing both things, but I still see around that space where people cannot just cross that threshold of 100K, because we have that ups and downs, and that is a combination again of like focusing either on the sales or on the delivery, and then adding the churn rate that's high, because if you don't focus on delivery, you focus on the sales, then again, you forget about the existing clients, and you're going to lose the client if you don't focus on delivery, right? So you have to ensure that that experience that clients have is great with you, because otherwise they're going to go. To your earlier point about referrals and asking for referrals, it's very important to ask for the referral when things are doing great with the client.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to choose. If you have a good call with a client and you're super, super happy, I'm like, oh my gosh, Colby, this is amazing. Well, I'm so glad we found you, all that stuff. This is where you say, hey, would it be possible for you guys to record a testimonial for us? Can we actually record something right now since we're on the call? Would it be possible for you to introduce me to 3 other companies that might be in the same position as you guys are? So this is where you should pitch that, because this is where the excitement is, right? And this is where you can kind of leverage that energy, if you will. And one thing just on referrals, one thing that I see that is very common, and that's just shutting down your referrals, is that you just hope for them to happen. And there's a system, there's a process to having proper referral program as well. And one of the elements of it is being proactive. So you have to proactively ask people. Ask and you will receive. Ask for a referral, and then maybe someone will do it. If you don't ask, you just wait for someone to think about you in the middle of their conversation. That will happen, but very rarely. But if you ask proactively, say, hey, I'm looking for 3 more clients, I'm going to actually incentivize you to do that. So I'm going to, take off 20% of your next invoice if you bring me one, right? And then you can also help them help you by giving them a blurb that they can just copy and paste in the email introducing you as well. So those are important pieces when it comes to referrals as well that will help you get more clients that way.
Yeah. And I think to kind of summarize what you were just saying as we wrap up, I think the balancing act, right? You bring in more clients and then you have more delivery that needs to be done. And if it's a unicorn founder, like you said, probably before this 50 to 100K mark, but could be after, that's doing sales and most or all the delivery, right? Even the greatest unicorn can't sustain all of that. And if they can, they're working 80 to 100 hours a week. And if you are, that's not sustainable. And if you're at a point in life where you think it is, take a step back and realize, what is your goal here? Is it to work yourself like that? Or is it to build a business? If it's to build a business, then you should not be working yourself like that for a long extended period of time, because ultimately you're just cornering yourself into being buried in the sand. And you can't sustain that long term. If you think you can, that's great. It's not going to. Right.
No.
I've been there. It's not building a business. It's just working. It's just a working mentality that way. So.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah. You really nailed it, I think. And what's important here is that you answer that question, am I building a business? Because there's nothing wrong with rolling up your sleeve. If you got a new client, all of a sudden you're still waiting to onboard a new team member, stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that, but that cannot be your business model where that is happening. It can be on occasion.
Yeah. Well, Mike, as always, great conversation here. I think this has been very helpful for agencies. Always good reminders for myself as well. So I appreciate you coming on. Where can people connect with you, learn more about what you do?
Yeah, well, just my website, mikekoziol.com, mikekozziol.com, or LinkedIn, same first name, last name. And then we'll just link to in the show notes to the visual of the 27 power activities.
Awesome. Mike, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.